So I don't have a college degree. I tried, I sort of tried twice to get a college degree, but both times I sort of decided it didn't make any sense. And this is something that factors into how I plan on educating our children. But to start from the beginning, so I went to high school. I went to a tech high school. I got my degree in, not degree, but I got my, diploma. And I studied essentially computer science. It was electronics and telecommunications with some computer programming baked in. So it was akin to like a computer science study in high school. And then so from there, I wanted to, they would tell you have to go to college. You're not going to have a good life if you don't go to college. Turns out that's entirely a lie. But at the time, I believed it. And so I tried to go to community college because really that was what was affordable for me and what was reasonable. I was working part-time, I was going to school part-time, but after 2 years of taking nearly full course loads, I still hadn't gotten into any of what I wanted to learn. I hadn't done any computer science. I hadn't done any programming. I was learning math and history and English and philosophy and intro to psych and intro to sociology. And I was like, this is such a waste of my time and money. And so after 2 years, I stopped. And I ended up getting a job as a software QA test technician. So basically, I would develop and run little test scripts on software and hardware for a machine that this company was developing, this small portable medical device up in New Hampshire. And I was really good at that, it turns out. My 2-month contract got extended to a 2.5-year contract till it got to the point where they couldn't keep me on because they didn't have the budget for it and they didn't have another project to move me on to when the project that I was on was wrapping up. And so I was out of work for about a month before I got an offer as a software QA engineer. So started as a technician, bumped up to engineer. So I argue with my friends about this all the time. I achieved the title, right? And really all that matters in the working world is that if you have the title, you are that thing. So my title at that point was software QA engineer. So I can, for all intents and purposes, say I am an engineer. My job is software QA engineer, no degree. And so I was there for about 6 months working at this company. Again, large scale, innovative medical device, wrote all of their software validation and verification testing, which is sort of like how they go through and make sure their software both does what it's supposed to do and is sort of working the way they intend it to work. So it's like meeting the customer needs, but also meeting the intended design of the software. Wrote all of those over the course of 6 months, did a really great job there, but unfortunately they didn't have the budget to keep me. A lot of these startup type companies, they don't have big budgets to inflate their staff levels until things go really, really well, until they sell their company or until they go commercial and go really big. So I was there for 6 months and then had to move on. Then I got my first really big sort of gig at a company in Cambridge, Mass, right down the street from MIT. Another innovative medical device company, and they were looking for a software QA engineer. I got offered that job. I worked there for 2 years, and after those 2 years, they needed somebody to move into a slightly different role. They needed a software test or a system test engineer, somebody to actually work on the whole console, not just the software, and develop tests for the hardware, the software, the interactions, the optics, the motors, everything on this very complex machine. And so I moved into that role because I had a skill for understanding and developing and executing and troubleshooting all of these different tests on complex hardware and software. And so I did that for about a year there. And then they needed somebody to move into a service position. They were going fully commercial. They were going to start selling these things around the world. And they needed somebody with the skills to work on the system, to troubleshoot the software, to troubleshoot the hardware, to document all of that and repair and update things when need be. But they needed them to do it remotely at a hospital, in the field, around the world. And since I had all of those skills, I was like, well, if all that's involved in transitioning from what I do now to being a service engineer is I get on a plane and fly somewhere to do the work instead of doing it here in the lab, that seems like a pretty straightforward move. And so I talked to them about it. They said, we agree. And so I moved into that position. And I worked my way from service engineer to senior service engineer to service manager, essentially, by the end of my 9.5 years at that company. And unfortunately, that company then went out of business due to some financial agreements that fell apart between them and some supposed interested buyers. But I ended up going from there to a bit of a sidestep. I moved to another company in Andover, Massachusetts that was looking for a software QA engineer. So back to writing and developing scripts and tests and test infrastructure, but no more travel. At that point, I was entering into my early 30s. I had gotten married. I had started having kids. We had bought a house, and I wanted to be home more often. I was traveling a ton for the company that I was at for 9 years, almost 3 or 4 days a week by the end of my time there. I was covering 100 systems plus over the entire United States, over Europe, everywhere. And so I wanted to get back to an office job. And so I was at this office job for about a year. Things were starting to get a little boring, a little stagnant. And out of the blue, I got an offer for the company that I'm at now. They said, we need a field service engineer, but not just a field service engineer and not just a field service manager. We need a global field service operations manager. We have this device that we think is going to be huge. We're going to be selling all across America, in Canada, in South America, in Europe, in Japan, in the Middle East, like everywhere. And we haven't built any of this out yet, but we know we're going to, and we need somebody who can handle that. And you have tons of experience managing a very similar type of technology and medical device, and you did it on a huge scale. So you seem to be the perfect person. And so I went, I met with them, I looked at the machine that they had been developing, and they were right. It was very familiar to what I was used to. I had all the skill set that they needed, which I had built up over my years of doing this. And in particular at that one company where I transitioned into service for the first time and then worked service for about 5 years or 6 years of my time in that company. And so I took the job and I've been there ever since. I am making more than I've ever made. I'm not wealthy by any means, but I'm doing well. We have a beautiful home and we have our cars, and I'm able to take care of my family, and my wife doesn't have to grind and work a full-time job. She can work like part-time freelance stuff and we're doing fine. And so I did all of that with no degree. I just decided after trying college, realizing this is not, I don't need this. This is a sink of money that's not going to benefit me in any way. And I just kept working. I just kept finding jobs that required slightly more skill than I had, and developing that skill so that I could do it really well, and then just moving either up in the company or over to the next company where I could grow there. Each time, earning slightly more to get to the point where I am now. And so, yeah, you don't necessarily need a degree. I don't have a degree. I think for a lot of roles in society nowadays, you either don't need a degree or the degree really isn't doing anything for the role, even if the role does require it. I mean, you look at some of the greatest engineering minds and thinking minds of our time, none of them went to college. They all just learned and innovated and thought on their own, and that was before the internet. Now we have the internet, so like all information is available all the time. If you're going to be a lawyer or a doctor or something like that, you still need tons of hands-on experience that you can really only achieve through the study in university, because nobody's going to let you work on humans or work the law to practice. But if you're talking about anything short of that, for the most part, to me, especially with the cost of education nowadays, and in my opinion, the reduction in the quality of the education that you get because it's so inflated with nonsense that you don't need, that's mandatory for some reason in the system that we have. Because of that, I don't think there's, for 90% of people, I don't think there's a reason to go to college. And for the people that are in the trades or that are interested in going into the trades, you're probably way better off. If you're interested in going to plumbing or HVAC or electrical work or, contracting, carpentry, anything like that, you're probably going to be better off. You're probably going to end up owning your own business and, taking care of yourself and your family with little to no effort, because those are all fields that are never going anywhere. They're, HVAC and heating and, I should say HVAC and plumbing and electrical. Those are all things that are going to be around forever, as far as we can tell, into the foreseeable future. And so your business isn't going to go anywhere. AI is not coming after your job or anything like that. But yeah, so I have no degree. I don't think most people need degrees. I think degrees nowadays are probably a bad idea in most cases. Yeah, I just wanted to share that with you. I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one.